Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we are going to be recreating this template called the decision matrix template. Now you may have seen this before, but if you haven't, I'll give you a quick overview. The decision matrix template allows you to make decisions about your task by assigning urgency or importance. It creates an automatic decision for you, and there are 4 of them. Do now, do later, delegate, or delete. All you need to do is put in your task in this section, select urgency and importance. You can add a due date. And then over here, it organizes the task in its individual sections. So for do now, do later, delegate, or delete. That way you can focus in on the different sections and complete your task as necessary. Now, before I go into the tutorial today, I do want to mention that this is a part of the template that I do have in my template shop. So if you're interested in a more robust version of this template, I will leave links in the description box so you can go ahead and check it out. But if you're looking for something to get you started, this is more than enough and you can create it today for free. And you could also customize it to meet your specific needs. All right, so here is what we're going to be going over today. I have it organized in this checklist form so it's easier for you to follow. And because these videos tend to be quite long, I will break it down into different sections so it's easy for you to follow while you're creating your own template. That being said, let's cross this out because we have gone over the template overview. The next thing we're going to do is create the decision matrix table. I'm talking about this section right here. What I'm going to do is add a new sheet. And the first thing I'm going to do is clean up my template. And what that means is that I like to make global changes so I don't have to change the different sections later on. So I like to select everything, change the default fonts. And I usually do center, and if I need to change it later on, I can always change it in the individual areas. And I like to do this vertical alignment, but making sure it's in the middle. And then what I do next is I remove the excess rows and columns. I'll probably remove somewhere from here, and I could always add more, but I find it easier to work with a smaller canvas because I tend to get distracted by a lot of things in one place at the same time. So I'm just selecting it all the way down, right click and delete. And the other thing I like to do is I always expand the size of my row. So this is the default size, which is 21. I like to do 30. Okay, so let's go over to the example. We're going to create a section right here. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. And we need a column before and a column after, so it goes all the way to H. Now, what I would recommend is if you are going to be creating this template with me, try to use the same columns and rows that I'm using so that the formulas work. One of the comments that I get very often is the formulas are not working, and it's because maybe your rows and columns are not exactly like what I have used. So I would say try to use the exact same. And then later on, if you need to make changes, you can make changes and your formulas would adapt accordingly. Okay, so now select A and H to resize it because these are like border columns. So click on resize and change this to 30. And then we'll resize this because this is going to be a number column. So I'll also use 30. This is going to be for the task. Now you can drag it to whatever size you want, or you can right click and resize. I like to use the numbers because it helps me just make everything more uniform. So I'm going to do 400. Okay. And then with these guys right here, if we go back to the example, you can see that's what they contain are pretty similar in width, so I don't need to change them. So the first thing we're going to do is add our main header and select all of these cells. I'm going to merge them and add a border around them. So I like to use the gray color, which is why I'm changing it to this dark gray, but you can use whatever color you want. And I'm going to use this outer border and do the same for the entire template. So just go all the way down here. And of course, I'm leaving a blank one here so that we have an entire border around the table. Go back here, do the same outer border, select this area. Okay, this is where we have the 4 columns. Add a left border here and then internal borders. I select this gray color and use vertical borders, internal ones, and then add them here. I'll select everything, horizontal borders, and I'm going to change the border style to this one right here. Okay, you can't really clearly see it here. What I'm going to do is show you what it looks like by removing the grid lines, and you can see what it's going to look like. Put the grid lines back for now because we're going to need it to create the rest of the template. So here is where the title is going to go, and I'll just type decision matrix template, and I can make this bigger, bold, and then I could actually make this heading slightly bigger. So instead of 30, maybe make it 35, and then we'll add the colors later on. Next, we're going to create this section right here. We're just creating the section and the structure. We're not adding any of the graphs or the formulas. Select 4 rows, right click, resize them, make this 50. And we know the graph is going to go here. So I'll just merge this entire area click on merge cells. And then for this section, merge the top one and the bottom one. And then just going back here real quick. So these two cells are merged as well as these. And this row is a little bit smaller. So we'll do the same here. For this row, we'll make that 25. And then merge these two cells, these two, and these two. And add an overall border around this area using the same thickness and the same color as the external border. Here is where the heading is going to go. Now I'm going to add some placeholder information. We have one or two and select these two and drag it all the way down. And one downside of using this method is that it will affect the formatting at the bottom. To fix this, select this bottom area, click on the borders, make sure it says no border, okay? And then click on bottom. And that removes the bottom border completely. And then we're going to re-add it, but add it from the next row and add it in a top border. So if we go to border, add your border color, and then we're going to select top border. So now let's add some more placeholder information and I'll show you how this makes a difference. So I'm going to add placeholder task number 1, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing, drag it all the way down to here until we have 42 tasks. And as you can see, we do not lose the border because the border is not down here. It's at the top of this row right here. Next, we're going to place checkboxes here. So select the entire area, insert checkbox. Here's where we're going to add a formula. So we'll skip that for now. And the last column is a date column. Select the entire column, click on data validation, add new rule and change it from drop down to is valid date. And I like to reject the input so it only captures dates. Click done. And if we double click, you can see the date picker option shows up so we can select whatever date we want. Not everyone uses this date format, just to show you how to change the date format. Selecting everything here and we go to formats, custom date and time. You can change it to whatever format you want. I'm going to click this and hit apply and then it changes it to this format. Okay, select a specific day here and then just drag it all the way down so each task has an assigned date. Going back to our example, I'm going to grab this title that says overall task summary and just check to make sure we're not missing everything. So it looks like we've captured everything. So I'm just going to add overall task summary and then just make sure that I have the dark borders surrounding this section here. Let's go back to our checklist to see how we're doing. We have done the decision matrix table, so check that off. Next, we're going to add formulas and graphs to the table. So going back to the example, make this smaller. We're going to add this graph and we're going to add the formula. So back to our template, we can easily add a date formula by adding equals today. And when we click tab or enter, it shows today's date and we can change the format by going here, custom date and time, and using whatever format you want. You can even add a time to it if you want. Select this one and apply, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to change it back to something more simple. Now, if we go back to the example, what we're doing is adding a text before the formula and the format after the formula. You can pause the video and copy it, but it's very easy. You're adding quotation, adding whatever text you want to add, and the formula and the format. Copy this and take it here and just delete what we have here, okay, and paste it. Make this bold. If you wanted to say something different, instead of saying today's date is, maybe you want to just say today is, you just adjust the text within the quotation. So you can see the text within the quotation, and I'm just removing day and click enter, and you can see it says today is February 3rd, 2025. Now we want to add the formula that makes a decision. Let's go back to the example so I can show you what the decisions are. So if something is urgent and important, it means you need to do it now. If it's urgent and not important, so check this off, it means that you're going to delegate. If it is important but not urgent, it means you're going to do it later. And if it's neither urgent nor important, then you're going to delete the task. The formula is right here, so we're going to double click so you can see the formula, pause the video, copy the entire thing, and paste it here. If we double click, you can see that it is selecting the correct cells, D8, which is this one right here, and E8, which is this one right here. So that's one way to troubleshoot your formulas. For example, if I change this to D9, you can see that now this is included in the formula and it's not going to work correctly. So change this back to D8, hit enter. And now let's test it out. So if it is urgent and important, it says do now. If it's urgent and not important, delegate. If it's important and not urgent, do later. And if it's neither, delete. And if, for example, you don't want to use do now, do later, delegate, or delete, but you want to capture the same concept of prioritizing your tasks based on urgency or importance, you can change these words here. When you have a formula with text in quotation, you can change it to whatever you want. And this could also apply to if you're using this with a different language. So if you're not creating your templates in English, you can change whatever is in this quotation mark. Now we want to apply the formula to the entire template. So we'll select that cell that has the correct formula and then just drag down. Go ahead and check a few of them. And you can see it is working the way it's supposed to be working. And I'm double clicking just to show you that the formulas have to match the location, which of course they do. All right, let's go back to our checklist to see how we're doing. Add formulas and graphs to decision table. So we're missing the graph. This graph right here is what we need to add. Okay, so now we have our column F working the way it's supposed to. Select the entire column. Go to the icon that says insert charts. Remember, you can also insert chart from here. And then what it's going to do is create whatever it thinks works best for the data. So you can use this, nothing's wrong with that. I'm just going to adjust the style slightly to remove the color background and the border so we can put it in that space. And I'm going to readjust and place it right here. This style works, but you could also change it to a different style. In the example, I used this style, so we're going to go ahead and match that. Edit charts. So instead of a pie chart, now we're going to use this one. And then unfortunately, we do have to readjust the formatting. So delete the heading here. Delete this as well. And then what we can do is change the colors of these individual bars. Double click in the chart again, select this bar, click here, and it's going to select just this bar, the one that says do now. So let's say you want to change the color. I'm going to select this first blue color, which is what it's already selected. Select the second bar, select this color, double click to select the third bar, select this color, and the fourth one, let's say we select this color. Okay, so that's how you reassign the colors to the bars. I will go over more things related to colors when we apply a color theme, but for now, that's all we're going to do with this chart. So we've added formulas and graphs to the table. We can cross this off. We do have some more formulas we need to add, but first we need to create the individual sections and then come back to the decision matrix table and add those formulas. Next, we're going to add individual sections. Back to the example, we're going to add these sections: do now, do later, delegate, and delete. Before we keep going on, if you want to go ahead and support my channel, what you can do, of course, is give me a like, comment down below if you found this video useful, and of course, if you want to support this channel so I could make these types of videos for you, go ahead and subscribe to my Patreon. And one benefit of my Patreon membership is that every tutorial that I go over and we create a template, you get an exact copy of that template. That way it's easier for you to create your own version of the template. Okay, so now that we're here, let's take a quick look so we can recreate it in our template. We have a column for the checklist, a column for the actual task, and a column for the due date. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert one column here. Okay, so next I want to resize the columns within each section. So I'm just counting 1, 2, 3, selecting, and I'm holding down Command on my keyboard. You might have to use Control if you're using a Windows computer. So 1, 2, 3, select that. 1, 2, 3, select that. And for the final section, 1, 2, 3, select that. And I'm going to click resize, and I'll make this 30 as well. Then I'm going to add external borders for the different sections. So have these entire areas selected. Go here, outer borders. And then what we can do is just use a paint format to copy and paste it into the different sections. Okay, you can see I'm just making sure it's still selected, paint formats, and pasting it here. Okay, so now we have the different sections. We're going to make this smaller and this bigger. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm selecting these 4, right click, resize, and I'm going to make this 30 as well. So this would be where the checkbox is going to go. Now select the middle ones, right click, make it 400 just to match the size we put over here. Hit OK. Back to the example. Next, we're going to add this header and what it means, which is urgent and important, and the due dates. Back here, first I'll add borders, add a border here, and one more here. Merge this as well. And here we're going to type do now. And of course, you can change this to whatever you're going to be using in the formula. If you are going to be changing yours to different text here, make sure that you're using the same here so you don't get confused. So we're going to do now, and for us, do now means urgent and important, so we'll type that here. And here's a checkbox. Click on the cell, insert emoji, and I like to search for checkbox here. And you can choose whatever one you want. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And then here I'll add due dates. And then what I'm going to do is just copy this and paste it for the different sections. Paste it here and for the last one. And then now all I'll need to do is just change the text here. As you can see, it copies the formatting and the merge as well. Change this to do later. Not urgent and important. Change this to delegate. So keep urgent and change this to not important. And the last one is delete and nothing. It's both not urgent and not important. Okay, and now that we've created these sections, I'm going to go ahead and just click on View, Show, and Remove Grid Lines. That way we can see exactly what we have done and what we need to do. Here's what it looks like. Next, I'm going to add internal borders to the different sections. Select it, borders, change the color. I want the style of the border to be the dotted style. I'll change this to this one. Add the horizontal ones, and then maybe add a border here to separate the task from the due dates. Select everything, use the paint option to add it to the rest of the sections. Alrighty, back to our checklist to see how we're doing. So we've added the individual sections, so we can check this off. Next, we need to add the formula into the section. So go back to the example. We want to add formulas here so that anything we add here automatically gets pulled into the different sections based on what we've checked off here. Let's take a look at what this formula looks like. I'm going to double click. So now we're using this array formula. And for these formula to work in your sheet, it's very important that you use the exact same columns that I'm using. If you take a look at this formula, you can see it's making reference to specific columns. Column C, column G, column D, and column E. Which is why if you just copy this formula and you're not using the exact same columns, it will not work. You can edit the formula to match your columns. So for example, my column C is where my task is. So if your task is in column B, for example, then you edit this formula and change C to B. So use my exact columns or adjust the formula. Okay, so I'm going to copy this formula here. Just double click here and paste and enter. All right, so if we double click, we can see that the formula is referencing the cells where it's supposed to reference, and column C is where our task is, which is fine. It's also going to pull the due date in G, so which is why we have the task here and the due date. We need to change the formatting here. I will do that next. So it's selecting C and G, the first one here, the second one here. And the criteria it's using is looking at the checkboxes. So for column D, if it's true, and for column E, if it's true. Now true means the checkbox is checked, false means it's not checked. They both need to be checked, which is why the formula says if D is true and E is true. Now it says limits to 20 because if we go back to my example, I only had 20 tasks. For this one, I have 42 tasks, so we can actually change that limit. So instead of 20, we're going to change this to 42. So depending on how long your task list is, you can change it to match that. So I'm just changing this to 42. Now for the due date, we need to change the format. So just select the entire column. We're going to go to format, number, and because we already used this format and we need to reuse it, just click on it. So task number 1, both are checked. If we uncheck, let's say importance, that disappears. Okay, and if we check it back, task 1 reappears here. So it works exactly how we need it to work. Now, because I haven't put in checkboxes, I'm going to do that now and then just copy the section and paste it. Click insert, checkbox, and then what I'm going to do now is just copy the entire area. Okay, you can right click and copy or use your shortcut keys, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and just paste. And then the formula, of course, needs to be changed. So check the formula and the location to see if they match. So if I double click, you can see the formula here, but the selection is not correct, which is why the formula doesn't work. So we can go ahead and delete this formula. And I'm just going to copy the entire formula instead of copying the cell location, copy the formula, and we're going to paste it here. Okay, so now it is the exact same result as this one. We need to change it. We're going to double click. And now because D has to be false, we're going to change D from true to false. So unchecked, false, hit enter. And now here's what it looks like. I'm just going to do the same thing. Just copy that. We're going to paste it and paste it one more time. Delete this and copy the formula. One way to ensure that it references the correct cell would be to lock this section. I'm not doing that because I only have 2 more areas to copy to. So I'll just copy the formula, paste it here. And for this, it's urgent, so D needs to be true. And E is not important, so this has to be false. Click enter. And finally, just delete this formula, paste the one with the correct range, and this should both be false. So D is false and E is false. Hit enter. Perfect. So now you can see we have the tasks showing up where they're supposed to, and you can play around with the checkboxes to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to. Back to our checklist, we'll cross this off. Next, we want to add a color theme. And of course, this is something that is personal to your taste and style. However, what I need to show you, and I've done this in some of my previous videos if you've watched those, is to use the color theme that Google provides. What that means is that we're going to click on the color and change the color theme here. Now, to do this, click on this pencil icon. It opens up the color theme. And even if you're not going to use the preset themes that Google has created, you can add your own colors. If you use the colors from these themes and you need to change the colors later on, all you need to do is change the color here and it changes it automatically for the entire template without having to change them individually. So I'll click done so we can review the color themes. I use this one for this template, but if I were to click this one, for example, you can see the colors here change automatically. If I click this, these colors change automatically. And if you want to customize it further, you can click customize. And if you don't like any of these colors, you could always change them. Okay, so to apply the color, let's start with this header right here. Click on the section you want to apply the color to. Fill color. Now you're going to select a color from here. Okay, so I'm going to select, let's say, this light color. And then let's apply another color here. Let's say maybe this dark color. Change this to white. Apply the dark green color here. Change this to white. And then let's say here, I want to apply this dark color, change it to white. Okay. And let's say I change my mind. All I need to do is go to fill color, change this and click done. Let's say I want to use this earthy tone instead, change it and it applies automatically. If I don't like this orange color, I can replace it with any color here, or I can add my own specific color by clicking on add custom color, type in X code or just reselect the color from here, click OK, and then it would replace that specific color everywhere in your template. Okay, so we added a color theme, cross that off. Next, we want to add the formulas for the individual sections. So these area right here. I'm just going to move this graph so I can show you exactly what I mean. So we have two formulas. The first one is counting the number of tasks we have. Okay, so you can see here, it says 3 tasks left. If I click on this to cross the task off, you can see now it says I have 2 tasks left. I'm going to copy the formula from here, go back to our templates. What I'm going to do is unmerge this. Okay, and then we're going to merge this section, so the second row, and merge the third row. And we're going to place the formula right here in the second row. So I'm just going to paste it and hit enter. And just to double check, I'm double clicking in the formula section and it is selecting the correct range. So the range with a checkbox and the range with a task. So just click enter. And let's make this bigger, change it to 24 in bold. Okay. The next formula is a text formula and it's just going to say task left if it's only one task. And if it's more than one task, it's going to use the plural version of task. So I'm just going to copy this and go back to our template, paste it right here. Okay, so you can see that it says task left because we have 20 tasks. And if I were to make this smaller and let's say I check these off. Now it should say 0. If I uncheck 1, it says 1 task. So you can see that it follows the singular and plural condition correctly. Okay, so now I can go ahead and select this entire range, copy it, and now we're just going to paste it here. If we double click, you can see that it is selecting the correct range for this section, so we don't have to make any changes to the formula. Next, we want to create this graph here. Now this graph represents done versus task not done. If we uncheck this, we have 3 tasks and 100% of the tasks are not done. If we check this, then we have 33%. We check this, we have 66.7%. And finally, when we check this, we have 100% of the tasks done. So the entire graph is green when everything is checked off and red when none of the tasks are done. Now you can use this to create the graph. So let's just say these 2 are checked and I try to create a graph based on the checkboxes and create a graph. Let's change this to a donut style graph so it's similar to what we already have. The problem with doing this is that it's going to assign false to these sections where we don't have a task. The proportion is correct of true versus based on this, but unfortunately the information is not helpful because it's also capturing the unchecked boxes when we don't have any task assigned to this section. So this doesn't work. In order to capture the correct information, we need to actually use additional formulas. To make things easier, what I have done is I have placed the formulas in this section. You cannot see them because I changed the color. So I'll change this color here in this section from white to black. And as you can see, I have two numbers here. This formula shows 2 here because we have 2 checked tasks. And this formula has 1 because we have 1 task that is unchecked. So it's accurately calculating the checked versus unchecked relative to if there is a task in this column. And this is what we've used to create this graph. What we need to do is copy these formulas into our template. Here's the formula. Pause the video and copy it. So I'm going to just grab that formula, go back to our template, paste it right here, and hit enter. And as you can see, if I check this, it changes to 1. Check this, it changes to 2. And if I check right here, nothing happens because there is no task assigned to this checkbox. All right, so go back here, copy the other formula. Okay, so again, pause the video and copy it. When we go here, we can paste the other formula right here. Hit enter, and you can see it's 18. And if we check this box, it decreases to 17. So it's essentially the same formula that we've used here. As we continue to check boxes, this goes up, this goes down. So now what we're going to do is use this to create our graph. Before we do this, I'm going to copy it again and paste it throughout the rest of the sections. And then we're going to add the graph. So to add the graph, select these 2 cells and insert chart. It's going to pull in this chart. We don't want this though. We want the donut chart. So select chart type, donut, switch rows and columns. So check that box. And now it shows up like this. What I like to do is modify it a little bit to remove the background color, remove the border, go to pie chart, and I like to use 75%. And actually I'm going to change this to 80%. So just type over it, 80%, resize this, place it here, and move it over here. Adjust the size of this number 4. Right click, resize. Let's make this 60. Readjust this so that it fits better. If I hover over here, this says 35% of our task, which is 7, is done, and 13 not done. So if we count the number of checkboxes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that is correct. 7 done, and the rest not done. Here's where you can change the colors. Double click right here. This is done. And I like to use something like green to designate a task that is done. So I'll just change it to this color here. Double click in this section, change this to red to designate it's not completed. Double check by clicking to see if it adjusts the way it's supposed to. So you can see everything is red here because we have 20 tasks that we need to complete. And as we start checking these boxes, and I'm just going to select everything here. And it should be green because we don't have a task to complete because everything has been completed. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is hide these. So I'm going to select the entire range and change the text color here to white. Okay. So then when we put this back here, this is what it looks like. Then we're going to just repeat the same steps for the rest of the template. Okay, we can cross this off. And the next would be to add conditional formatting. We have 2 different types of conditional formatting we're going to add, one for the due date and the scratch off effects. And here is what it looks like. So back here in our example, just move this back to its spot, change this to 100. Okay, so here is what we're going to add. We're going to add the scratch off effect. Okay, so when we check this box, we want to cross everything off because it's done. And the other thing we want to do is to add a due date. So as you can see, this turns red because due dates are in the past. Today is February 3rd. So let's change task number 2 to a due date that is, let's say, tomorrow, the 4th of February. And when we do this, that red color goes away. So this is another way to flag the task that you need to complete because they turn red because they're overdue. Let's go and apply them to our template. Select this entire section, click on the color, conditional formatting. Now, first thing it's going to do is just apply some generic formatting rule to your section. Don't worry about that. Just make sure the correct range is selected. The first one we're going to do is use custom formula. We want to apply the scratching effect. Okay, so when this cell is checked or when it's true, you want to apply that cross effect. So the way to do it would be to type in here equals. We're going to use the $ because it will apply to the entire template. So we'll do $ and then type in the location of the cell. Okay, so I8. So we're going to type I8. And then once you do that, you can see that it's only applying the conditional formatting to the cells that are checked. Then you can change it to whatever you want. So I'm going to change this fill color to none. And I'm going to change the text color to something light like this. And select this strike through, which is what gives the cross off effect. Click done. Okay, and as you can see, we have the effect here. As we cross it off, you can see our graphs adjusting here, and we have the conditional formatting applying correctly. Okay, next thing we're going to do is apply another rule. I'm just going to click on the first conditional formatting box and add another rule. I like to do this because I don't have to reselect the range. If I add another rule, the range is already selected. Now I can go here and add another rule. Add if date is before today. So I want to make that color this color. Just change this to none, and that would keep the default text color we had originally. Remove this strike through. Click done. So when you do that, you can see that we have two independent formulas. The first one for the strike through and the second one for the task that's overdue. Let's go back to task number 1, and I'm going to change the due date to January 30th, which is in the past. When we go here, you can see that nothing shows up. This is because it's applying this first conditional formatting first. So if we uncheck this, you can see that the formatting shows up. So it's going to apply the conditional formatting priority based on the order here. So if you want this to be applied first, all you need to do is to move it to the top, and then this applies first. So if I check this box, you can see that this conditional formatting always shows up, and then this is applied second. It does make sense to keep this first because if a task is checked off, then it doesn't need to be flagged as overdue. All right, so what we're going to do next is repeat the same steps for the rest of the template. I noticed that I forgot to add the formulas here, so I'm going to do that now. Back here, we have the number of tasks left. And if I double click, the formula is adding the tasks from do now, do later, and delegate, except for delete. Okay, and right here, we have 11 tasks, and we have these two as overdue. If I cross this off, this goes down to 10. Or if I change this due date, so task number 9, I'm going to change it to a date in the future. So let's say the 4th. This also goes down. So it's going based on these two criteria. The difference between these two is that this is showing you all the tasks you have to do, and this is showing you the tasks that you have to do that's overdue. This is a simple formula. It's just adding the task here, here, and here. So I4, meaning this number here, so 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, paste it here. Okay, so if we double click, you can see it's adding 13 plus 3 plus 6. Okay, and just change the color here to have that contrast with the darker color, and change the size 24, make it bold. Do the same for this. Copy the formula. So pause the video, and I'm going to copy this right here. Okay, and go back to our template, paste the formula, click enter. The only other thing I would change is if we double click this formula, okay, it's gonna select up to here 27 because this only goes down to 27. So what we're gonna do is just change the row to 49, or we'll keep it open-ended so that when you adjust it in the future, it will adjust automatically. So what do I mean by that? Double click here to display the formula, and instead of stopping at 27, you can change this to the last row for your template, or you can just remove the number. So if I remove the number, it's going to select everything all the way down, and if I do add some more rows in the future, it will include those as well. Now it's selecting everything all the way down for the 3 sections. So hit enter, and now it shows up as 1. And this is because we only have one task that's overdue that hasn't been checked off. And if I cross this off, this should change to 0. And finally, we have the text formula, which is just telling us we have 12 tasks left, 10 tasks overdue today. Okay, double click so you can see what it is, so you can copy it. Very straightforward formula. Pause the video, copy it. Double clicking, pause the video so you can copy it. And I'm just going to copy these formulas and paste them in our template. Perfect. And just make it smaller, just to make sure it fits properly. All right, so we've done this step, and the last is to view the decision matrix template demo. I'm going to check this off because I already talked about the benefits of a paid membership to my Patreon. Here is a copy of the template that I have for sale. I'm just giving you a quick overview of what it looks like. In addition to the matrix here, we have different calendars, one for each day of the month. And this allows you to essentially use the calendar as another alternative to the matrix So the matrix will filter in the task into the different categories, and the calendar would show you what it looks like based on the dates selected here, and this can be reused for multiple years. All right, so that is where we're going to wrap things up. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for supporting me. If you found this tutorial useful, please hit the like button and leave a comment below and tell me if you're able to make your template or if you had any issues with it, and I'll try to help you the best way that I can. Thank you so much for watching.